confused. You're afraid to pick a character and commit to the role. This world doesn't run on clarity. It runs on conviction. And every day you hesitate, the simulation is defaulting to your old identity file. Remember, reality isn't random. It's a printout. Reality is the PDF and your identity is the file. And your file right now is full of corrupted lines. I don't manifest solely through journaling or rituals, in other words. I do it through identity repetition, method acting, relentlessly embodying the identity of my future self. Why? Because I know the truth. Identity is the operating system that this matrix runs on, which means that every single micro thought you allow to repeat and every limiting belief that you just don't correct, you let fall by the wayside, every nervous system rehearsal you let slide that you put off for another time, that you say, oh, I'm too tired today, let me just start again tomorrow. That's what's writing your file, okay? That behavior is what's generating your timeline, because manifestation isn't magic, it's mechanics, which means inputs equal outputs. So what are you feeding your future self? Are you feeding it the nutrients of your embodiment, or are you feeding it delay, fear, and doubt? Identity is just energetic capital. Every decision is a transaction. So what the fuck are you funding? Your future or your fear? Let's also talk about method acting. I think a lot of you guys think, oh, like I'm playing pretend. No, method acting isn't about pretending, okay? It's about installing. In other words, you don't have to feel like your highest self all the time. I have moments where I'm frustrated. I have moments where I feel petty, moments where I feel tired. Being a human being is part of the experience of the matrix, but this is where my identity comes in. This is why no matter how I'm feeling at any given moment, which by the way is for the majority a positive feeling because I have fed myself the macronutrients and the micronutrients to sustain that frequency, but I don't have to freak out when I'm feeling down. Why? Because my identity isn't predicated on how I'm feeling in any given moment. It's predicated on who I believe and know I am. What do I think is inevitable for Courtney? Remember, the first rule of the matrix is you make your own rules. So what do I believe about myself? My self-concept is no matter what I go through, I am a master manifester. I can't afford to have fluctuating feelings. Why? Because my identity, I'm the exception to every single rule. That means I get to have shitty days and still get every single thing I want on the other side of it. I get to have moments where I remember my trauma and for a second my heart tugs. And I still get to know on the other side of that moment, I'm gonna get every single thing I want out of life. I'm gonna squeeze the juice and the universe is gonna deliver every single one of my desires on a silver platter. Because that's who the fuck I am. Everything I go through, every feeling, every trauma, every breakup, it makes me more of the person I want to be. It turns me into more of that icon. It makes me even more weaponized in my adversity, because remember, when it comes to manifestation, your adversity is your accelerant. You think you're going through all this bullshit not to have an insane victory on the other side? Wrong. Manifestation is narrative control. Right now, you are in your prologue if you are struggling. All 2024, I was in my prologue. And guess what? Come January 2025, I popped the fuck off. 3 months into TikTok, I had 100,000 followers. So if you don't have to feel like your future self all the time, what do? You just have to behave like the file is already live. Even in collapse, even in doubt, even when it's boring, especially when it's boring. You take that elevator to the penthouse, even if you're getting off at level 3, and you leave that 3D on red. This isn't just method acting, in other words. This is method being. But you get there through relentlessly method acting first. You know what I mean? Okay, let's talk about what I've coined the amphibian test. You think your self-talk doesn't matter? You think how you treat yourself in here doesn't matter as long as you're acting the way that you want to on the outside? Wrong. Your self-talk is your entire command center. It is the difference between what you think is possible and what you're actually gonna experience on the other side of your dreams. All of those suspicions that you're fucking legendary. You are greatness incarnate. Either way, all of that is true. That suspicious hunch you have that deep down you're legendary and you're destined for incredibly huge things, let me just tell you, that is true. I had that suspicion for my entire life. I knew that one day, Court, you're gonna pop the fuck off and you're gonna be the woman who brings manifestation to the motherfucking masses. You're gonna be the Brené Brown of manifestation. You know how when people think of vulnerability, they think of Brené Brown? When people think of manifestation, I said, baby, they're gonna think of Courtney Cho. That's the self-talk, okay, that I had when I had 700 followers on Instagram before I started TikTok this January. Do you think I would have 100,000 followers 3 months later if I hadn't been speaking to myself all of 2024 when I was in that void, telling myself, Courtney, you're gonna be legendary. You are gonna be world renowned for how you're taking what you've learned, translating it for people who just wanna know, how the fuck does manifestation work? I just remember feeling some tension with manifestation. I'm like, this shit feels so fucking fluffy. Everyone's like, just trust. Like, no, how the fuck does it work? And also report to me from inside the battlefield, not after you've made your millions and you're like, so here's how I did it. It's like, is that really how you did it though? Or did daddy write you a check that you're not talking about? Anyway, the amphibian test. Basically, Tom Cruise is so delusional and insane. Like, that man is, I think that man is like not well. But he literally trained himself to hold his breath underwater for something like 6 minutes. But it's something that's technically like longer than a human being should technically be able to hold their breath. Okay, so delusion isn't irrational in that case. It's mechanical. And you think he got there by thinking, oh, there's limits to me. No. If you're delusional enough, in other words, you can literally become an amphibian, okay? It's semantics. I'm not literally, but you know what I'm saying, okay? So Chad from Ohio, you get what I'm saying. Don't misunderstand me on purpose. But like, he's doing insane shit. How? His mind. What he thinks is possible for himself. The legend that he believes himself to be. We're not gonna talk about the Scientology part. So what do? You D-Day your subconscious. Your job isn't to surrender when you feel doubt. It's to declare fucking war. Throw everything at your subconscious like it's Normandy. Sleep with your vision playing. Eat like you're already funded. Move like you're being surveilled by your future self. Stop waiting for alignment to arrive, in other words. You manufacture it. Also, your real block is data collector syndrome. You're not lazy or stuck because you're confused. You're just running old code. You've been collecting strategies like a survivalist, but just refusing to fucking detonate. Stop bookmarking. Implement. But the truth is, you're actually terrified that even if you go all in, it won't work. That's actually the resistance. That's the confusion. So you hedge. You just study instead of simulating. You don't feel failure, in other words. You fear being wrong about your destiny. You fear that suspicion is wrong. If you're just waiting for proof, like, you don't have an excuse anymore, because I am the proof. I am the data. I'm literally demonstrating this in front of you guys as we speak. So this isn't theory. This isn't pontification. This is a live demonstration. It's a diagnostic. You're watching the file print in real time. I started with 700 followers on Instagram and 0 followers on TikTok, having literally never posted on TikTok before January 2025. I didn't have any connections. I didn't have any mentors. I didn't have any industry backing. No one was sending energy my fucking way. And still, 3 months, 100,000 followers, a Skims collab. Niche as fuck content, proof-based, with every single one of my videos being over 5 minutes long on a short form app. That's not algorithmic luck, babes. That is correct identity formatting. You're not being tested, in other words. You're being given an option. Free will is in your hands. Don't get it twisted. This is what free will actually is. You want comfort now, or you want victory later? Want to stay realistic, or you want to format for greatness? You want to listen to that hunch deep inside you that knows you're a fucking legend, or you want to stay an NPC? You can skip levels in the 3D if you don't skip levels in the void. All 2024, I didn't even have time to keep checking for proof because I was too busy basking in the frequency of my future self, who I am now. So now I'm basking in the frequency of my future self, who actually, by the way, has millions of followers. You don't need a sign, okay? Or if you do, this is your sign. But what you really need to do is pick a character and stop breaking it. Guess what? You already know who the character is. You know intimately well who your dream self is. You need to be feeling a self-concept so fucking big that thinking small feels uncomfortable. The simulation is rigged for identity, and reality isn't asking if you're ready. It's just reading your formatting, your identity formatting, and hitting print. So I'll ask again, are you funding your future, or are you financing your fear? Let me know how it goes.